Okay, welcome to today's edition of the Academy, where we're continuing our look at Sun Tzu's first chapter, dealing with planning, laying plans, is the title. We're picking up here in the middle, around verse 21, or sentence 21, and these four sentences are pretty, well, I'll let you be the judge. Looking forward to some comments below. But the very first one, again, we're dealing with the concept of deception here. If your opponent is secure at all points, be prepared for him. So, in other words, if he's well defended, make sure that you are able to address each of those strong points. Not necessarily overwhelming it, but being able to resist what he may have for you. If he is a superior strength, evade him. It's the other half of that verse. And this is important. Try not to put your favorite units, or the ones that are more vulnerable to a particular type of attack, in front of or facing their nemesis. So do not put your rock facing the opponent's paper. Okay? Try to move your rock away from the paper, opposing your opponent's scissors. Alright, that's what you really want to do. So if he's in superior strength, evade him. Make it so that your opponent has to maneuver to bring his forces into concentration again. This is one of the reasons I like to deploy second, which is not always a good thing, but it gives me this advantage. The opponent doesn't have any idea how I'm going to deploy. He sets it up, trying to hopefully affect the best outcome across the table, and I'll take a look at where his strengths are, and I will make sure my scissors are away from his rocks, and my rocks are away from his paper, and hopefully I'll be able to take him on in a little more strong fashion. So, now the next verse. This one's may be a little bit controversial, but it is definitely something you can do, and you have to be careful how you do this one in a tournament setting or even in a competitive setting without being that guy. You do not want to be rude. But if your opponent is of choleric temper, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. That's Sun Tzu's quote. Now, what I'm not suggesting or proposing here is that you try to irritate your opponent to the point where you're making his life miserable. No. We want to be good sportsmen. However, if you know your opponent is more of an emotional type that doesn't take setbacks well, what you want to do is put him in a position. Again, you're trying to be competitive. I'm not talking friendly games. I'm talking competitive games. Put yourself in a position where you appear to be weak. Let him kind of attack get his hopes up, and then deal him a blow that's in his mind devastating. Whether it is or not is irrelevant. He has to perceive it as devastating. That will throw him off. His arrogance will play into your hand. You'll hit him. You'll hurt him. He'll stumble a bit because he'll get irritated. He'll get a little upset, and then wait for the next opportunity to do exactly the same thing. Again, don't do this in friendly games. And when you're in a tournament setting, don't do this in arrogant, bitter fashion. You're not trying to ruin somebody's day. You're simply trying to maximize your ability to keep your opponent from concentrating. Okay? This is one you definitely have to be very careful with, because again, you don't want to ruin someone's experience. This is all supposed to be fun. Now, there are some people out there who the only way they have fun is by winning, and that's too bad. But if your opponent, if you want to win, and you want your opponent to make mistakes, because that's what allows you to win a lot of times, is fluster him a bit. But do it with the tabletop, with the way the game unfolds. Don't do it with insulting, what have you. We're talking, because that's not how it would be on the real battlefield. You're not going to hurl insults across the field, several hundred yards, over the din of battle, and insult your opponent's general. It's not going to be heard. So you're going to upset your opponent's general, by simply turning events against him, so that he's not expecting that and isn't prepared. Maybe it distract him from the mission objectives. That way you are able to stay on the mission and succeed. Especially if your your force is outnumbered or potentially outgunned, it's maybe at a disadvantage. This is one way to really potentially turn the tables on them. Okay, but I'll leave that one up to you. I'm just telling you what Sun Tzu said and how to interpret that and apply it to the tabletop. Okay, so the next one, verse 23. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Now, again, a lot of commentators I've seen, I've read, have turned this around a little bit, and I think they're making it more complicated than it really is. It's very simple. If he's taking his ease, give him no rest. So if he's feels like he has nothing to worry about, give him something to worry about. If he has units in the backfield that seem to be comfortably sitting on the objective that he needs to hold, threaten them, make him uncomfortable, make him worried about that as well as what he has to deal with. This goes back to a comment I made in a previous video. Give your opponent dilemmas, not just problems. Okay, so if he has to face the problem of his offensive front, where he's trying to take an objective you may have, he's got a problem there. But if you give him a threat in his backfield on his objective, for example, now he's got a dilemma. Where does he put his effort? How does he deal with apply his force? If his force is united, the second half of it, you want to make sure to split it, separate it. This is a divide and conquer kind of thing. You can divide and conquer in many different ways. One is literally splitting the force in half, causing part of it to peel off to one half of the table, part of it to peel off to the other. The other way to do it is to take your force and apply it all against one half of his units, and then once that's dealt with, turn attention on the other half. Okay, so either way, you're dividing the opponent's effectiveness by dividing his units. He's not able to bring his entire force to bear on yours. Okay. Now, finally, attack him where he is unprepared and appear where you're not expected. This is actually a fun one, and this is one of the reasons I love playing Tau, because Tau get to do this. Outflankers are fantastic. A lot of armies have good outflanking capabilities, and the one thing that Tau can do is they can actually come in off the opponent's table edge if they set up their units in the proper fashion. Who is prepared for that? Even if you're used to playing Tau, you can't prepare for that, because that's a at least 48 inches, potentially 72 inches of table length you need to defend, and you can't defend that and still engage your front battle line. So it's a dilemma, right, for your opponent. You got to, what is he going to do? What is my opponent do? So he has to try to figure it out. So if your opponent expects you to come in against one area, let's say it's the relic. Good. Everyone knows you're going to go for the relic, right? Well, don't go for the relic right away. Maybe there's a way to attack him where he's not ready for it. He's massed his army up by the relic, ready to take it. Well, you don't have to commit directly to the relic initially. I mean, again, it all depends on the relative strengths of the armies you're bringing. You may actually want to prevent his escape. So bring units around the back and the side, so that he has nowhere to run once he's got the relic. You've hemmed him in. Okay, that's a way to handle that, right? He's not prepared necessarily for that. He's expecting to grab it and go. Then, of course, appear where you're not expected. Bring in your outflankers where your opponent isn't expecting them. You can actually make him think you're going to go up against one side of the battlefield when you're actually going to come in the other. Now, of course, outflanking, you may not always get the choice of where you're coming in, but if you do have any way to manipulate that, by all means do. And don't commit those forces based on what is happening in the turn that moment. Look at the overall situation on the battlefield. This turn and the next two turns. If you have an exposed flank and your outflankers have freedom of movement, that may be more valuable than putting them where they can take out a unit that particular turn. Again, I can't say which one's the right answer, because it all depends on the specific tactical situation. And going back to a previous video on one of Sun Tzu's comments, according to the circumstances that are favorable, modify your plans. Okay, so you have a plan of where you want to bring your outflankers on, but change it. Make it appropriate to the situation. Not the immediate turn's need, but the immediate turn's need plus the next two. Because you don't want to bring this wonderful outflanking unit in, deal with the one threat that you just are desperate to deal with, and now it's out of position to accomplish what it should have done in the first place. All right, so be very careful when you bring in the outflankers. This is your chance to bring them in where they're not expected, where the opponent wouldn't think you'd need to bring them in. May not be able to defend against them. If he's got a bunch of las cannons on the left half of the table, you may want to bring your outflankers in on that left half of the table. With that 48-inch range, it's not going to be long before, if those things are positioned properly, they may be able to shoot at you the very next turn. So whether you're 48 inches or 4 inches away, it doesn't matter. You're still in range of a las cannon. Sorry. Go ahead, get to the point where you can engage those units and put the pressure on him where he doesn't expect it. Okay? Alright, so I'm going to finish this particular chapter off with his last 26th verse, his last verse. And this is actually something that I want to emphasize throughout this entire Academy series. From the first video to the last video I don't even know when that's going to be. He says, I'm going to quote this in the version I have, "Now the general who wins a battle makes many calculations in his temple before the battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations beforehand. Thus do many calculations lead to victory, and few calculations to defeat. How much more no calculations at all? It is by attention to this point that I can foresee who is likely to win or lose." Okay, this is centuries old. The year escapes me. I do apologize for that. I'll edit the actual year back in during the video, but you know, he's trying to really make a point here. What is it that distinguishes a successful general from an unsuccessful one? And that's the amount of planning, calculation. It's not who spends the most time planning and putting a plan together. It's who has the most detailed, developed plan. And the key here is the calculations. So you have a plan that you're going to do. Your units are going to do these different things. Okay, well, what happens if the opponent does X instead of Y? Okay, make a plan for that. Well, what if they do Z instead of Y? Make a plan for that. What if they do P instead of Q? Make a plan for that. Look at every possible, or as many possible things the opponent could do to thwart you, or bad luck you might have. How would you recover? Make those calculations. Spend time thinking. Spend time building your list around the possibilities. The players who do this best are more successful. Just like the generals who do this best are more successful. So I leave you with that as we close out the first chapter of Sun Tzu's Art of War. And see you in the next video where we'll talk about his second chapter, Waging War. Alright? See you in the next video. Enjoy. Please share, like, and subscribe, and let me know what you think. Please ask questions below, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye.